Should I start, Simran? I think you're muted. I can't hear you. I think you're mute. Your volume is down.
Wait, so I have to introduce first.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Simran Thakur, National Officer RISO, the Research Administrative Society of Games, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you all to the launch of SRMAX, a systematic review and meta-analysis bootcamp. This is hands-on, free training initiative designed to equip medical students with practical, evidence-based research skills. Unlike traditional research workshops that tend to be passive and costly, SR Max is built on interactive, mentor-led, and application-driven model. Our goal is to foster a collaborative research ecosystem that's accessible and engaging for all. So the SR Max bootcamp will run across 4 structured modules, each focusing on key components of systematic reviews and meta-analysis. Today, we begin with Module 1, titled as Foundations of Systematic Reviews and Meta-Analysis, how to develop a research objective, introduce the basics, and help learners develop strong, structured research questions. So it's my honor and privilege to welcome our esteemed speaker for today, Dr. Soumik Chaudhary. Dr. Soumik is a distinguished medical doctor and faculty member at one of the Asia's top universities. He is an award winner, researcher, a celebrated author, and a globally recognized academic voice. Among his many accolades, the Scottish Research Award USA, the Best Faculty Award for the Indian Academy of Forensic Medicine, and recognition from Indian Association for the Cultivation of Science, home to Nobel laureate C.V. Raman. Dr. Soumik's work bridges forensic science and storytelling. His novels, including House Murder for an Experiment, The Silent Execution, The Devil's Surrogate, have been translated into several languages. Notably, The Silent Execution is being adapted into a feature film scheduled for the theatrical release in March 2025. We're truly privileged to have you with us today, sir. So now, without further ado, let's begin our today's session. Over to you, sir, Dr. Soumik.
Thank you very much, Simran, for this very kind introduction. I have given you a lecture previously also on the basics of research.
Yes,
so we'll
sir.
go ahead from that point in this program, which is newly introduced by you. It's a very good initiative, and it will, I hope, be useful to all of you. That was always my basic objective as a teacher, and that is I always like to participate in these sort of programs. So thank you very much, and I'll go ahead with the presentation of today. That is initially, how do you do research? That is the first steps of research. How do you do a systematic review? How do you do meta-analysis? What is the difference between the two? And how you go forward to developing a proper research protocol as well as to developing a proper research question. That is your first module today, isn't it not, Simran? Yeah. So the first thing is a meta-analysis is usually a statistical technique, and it is combines the results of various studies that are there in a single topic so that we can come to a more robust conclusion. When you are doing a single research study anywhere in the world, what happens is that the sample size is to a certain extent limited to that place. Plus, there is the limitation of statistical power, the precision effect, etc., which leads to certain amount of biases developing in that result. So when we are using systematic review, then what happens, we are combining a number of data, the number of data we get from a number of studies, increasing sample size, statistical power, and precision of effect estimates. This also makes it more accurate, gives the gradual more magnitude in case of a comprehensive analysis of harms, safety, benefits in case of various clinical trials. So it is very useful for a long-term study. You can change your slides if you need. We are stuck on the first slide. Yeah. So the systemic review and meta-analysis, what is that? Systemic review is when you are doing a number of reviews together. You are identifying and critics. Yeah, just the page is gone. Systematic review. Yeah. It's a type of literature review that uses a rigorous, transparent, and reproducible method to identify, synthesize all available evidence on a specific research question. So suppose you have framed a research question, which is can be hypothetically anything that you like to research on, anything of your interest, and then you have taken a number of literature studies, number of papers that are available on that topic on the various research engines, and you have discussed them. but it doesn't always give you the full idea, only the literature review. So what we do is a systematic review, which is more transparent, more rigorous, and reproducible, because it follows certain systems, which I'll come into later on, so certain methods which come into use later on. But systematic review is more about a pool of research papers that are extensively studied to make a summary of the research gap. Now that brings us to the question of what is a research gap and what types of research gaps do exist. Number one is, I think, a knowledge gap, that there is no or limited research on your topic. There is absence of research, or there is limited research on that topic, which might be leading to a research gap. That might be evidence gap, which is your research contradicts existing research. Whatever result is coming and your research, whatever you're doing, is whatever the existing research is available on that topic, it might contradict to some extent, and that might lead to some evidence gap. Then there may be methodological gap, which is the existing research methods are insufficient for your topic. Whatever topic you have chosen, your existing methods, what you are using for doing that research, might be limited to some extent, and that might lead to methodological gap. Then there is the empirical gap, which is no or limited empirical data for your research topic, that you don't have sufficient empirical data so that you can compare and analyze and do the things, and that might lead to an empirical gap in this research. Then the fifth type is the practical knowledge gap. That is what you have learned in your theory and the practice of the application of that theory into the topic of research. There might be a disconnect, which might lead to a practical knowledge gap. Then similarly, what is something related to this practical knowledge gap is the theoretical gap, whereas the theoretical explanation for this topic is inadequate. That whatever you are explaining, whatever you want to explain by the theory that you have thought adequate for doing this, might be inadequate. That is called the theoretical gap. The population gap, I'll come to this later on. I'm just important. I'm going by the order of the how you should learn this thing. The population gap is not fully or correctly represented in existing research. So when population is there, the population what you have chosen for your study is not completely representing or fully represented earlier in the existing research. So you have to redefine it maybe. So, and the last one is the data gap, whereas the existing data is insufficient to address the research questions. So these are the types of gaps: the knowledge gap, the evidence gap, the methodological gap, the empirical gap, the practical knowledge gap, the theoretical gap, population and data gap, that can result in your research question not being properly framed. And here, where you are doing literature review, you are studying from a broad review of research, identifying trends, gaps, themes to provide the context. And you choose the studies, flexible and narrative, and you have got no strict protocol. On the other hand, in systematic review, what you have is, it follows a protocol. It uses the Prisma guidelines, which I'll talk about later on, and strict selection criteria, so that you have a more correctly objective review that you can use for your further research on that topic. And what is the difference between systematic review and meta-analysis, which I talked about earlier on? Meta-analysis is a statistical technique that combines all the results. That is, it is more of a database thing. Whereas in systematic reviews, you identify and critique relevant research studies, discuss all the factors that may explain this heterogeneity, and synthesize the knowledge. Whereas meta-analysis is identifying the research studies using a defined protocol, statistically test study heterogeneity and investigate the explanatory variables, and statistically summarize the results. So you understood the difference. Meta-analysis is more about the data analysis and data part, whereas this is systematic reviews is coming into more the methodology part, and all the knowledge gaps can be filled up to an extent by using that. Which brings us to the question of what is the Prisma in research mean? Now this Prisma is stands for preferred items for systematic reviews and meta-analysis. So when we are doing the systematic reviews and meta-analysis, we usually follow the Prisma, which is the standardized technique of standardized board. You can call some checklists which are used. A flow diagram is used normally, but normally it's a checklist of 27 items as it stands on the Prisma 2020 guidelines. The initial guidelines were in 2009, I believe, but they have been modified in 2020, and there is a 27-point guideline which gives you the full idea as to how you are doing the research, how the records are identified through database searching, how the records are identified from the other sources, how the records from the duplicate studies are removed. Then records are screened for the relevance and what are excluded, on what basis they're excluded, and what are included. This is how you can do it. And the full text articles assess for eligibility. And finally, it is included for qualitative synthesis, and studies included in the qualitative synthesis are used in meta-analysis. So these are the points, but the thing is, it has got a 27-point guideline. I'll just come into the points. Just give me a second. The 27-point guidelines that are there usually. You can find on the internet, obviously, but I'll just tell you the points just for your elucidation. I'll tell you just a moment. Yeah. So when you are doing the checklist, the Prisma 2020 checklist is there. Whenever you're writing the paper or the section, the first thing comes, that is title. And the title, you identify the report as a systemic review first. Then you see the abstract. There are separate guidelines for the abstract. There is a checklist for that on the available. You check with that. Then we go into the rationale, which is item number 3. You describe the rationale for the review in the context of the existing knowledge. And then you provide an explicit statement of the objectives or questions the review addresses. Then we come to the method section, seeing the eligibility criteria, the information sources, the search strategy, how you have searched the engines and how you have come to the using any filters or you have used any limits while searching them. Then how you have selection process, how your methods have used where study has met the inclusion criteria of the review, including how many reviewers screened each record and each report retrieved, whether they have worked independently, and if applicable details of automated tools used in the process. So if you have used a specialized process for searching this, for selecting the studies, you have to mention that. The data collection process is there, specify the methods using for collecting data. Then we go for the data items, define all the outcomes for which data was sought, specify whether all results were compatible with each outcome, which domain in each study was sought. And we come to the 10A, 10B, which are 2 parts. It is a very long list, so you can go through the internet in it and you can get a clear idea of what it is. They're very clearly defined, so there's no difficulty in understanding it. There's the study risk of bias assessment, the effect measures, synthesis methods, reports of bias assessment, certainty assessment, and ultimately we go to the study selection, study characteristics, risk of bias in studies, results of individual studies, results of synthesis, reporting biases, certainty of evidence. Then we go to the discussion part in various 4 parts. Then other information like registration protocol, competing interest, availability of data, code, and other materials. And these things are there. So it's a basic checklist, nothing else. So you go via the checklist, you don't miss out anything when you're writing your paper or doing your search for the meta-analysis thing. All the checklists are available in the internet on the Prisma website itself. So it's nothing to talk about it much. Let's just mention just the basic points of that. So just for assessing that thing. And then we come to a point which is called Prospero. And what does Prospero in research means? It is an international register for systematic reviews. It maintains an international database that registers the protocols for systematic reviews. So when you are doing that, it aims to enhance the transparency. It enhances reduction of bias, prevent unintended duplication of research efforts by making review protocols publicly available before the review is conducted. When you are registering a systematic review under Prospero, what you are seeing for yourself in a transparent method is what other reviews are there on that same topic, what biases were there, and you are not doing the same study again and again. So it might be so that you are doing a similar study to what is being attempted in some other country or some other place, some other institute, and that duplication is a vestige of the research efforts. So you get a clear idea by using the Prospero once you register in that international database that whatever the systematic reviews are going on your topic, and you have a clear idea on that, and then you can proceed for your research in an original method. Now I'll come to something which is called the PICO or PECO in research question formulation. What PICO stands for, PICO is we might stand for 3 things: population, patient, and problem. And it might be what the population is defined in a study, or what the patient types are in a study, what the problem is, what you are studying. It might be either of the 3. I stands for intervention. In some cases, E replaces the I, which is exposure. And then C is the comparison, and O is the outcome. So population, patient, problem, I told you earlier. Intervention is what do we do to them? What are the things we can do to them? What are they exposed to? Suppose you are doing an elective procedure on them, a surgery, or using a certain medicine, and then you are seeing a comparative method with the C, that you are comparing the intervention with another comparative method of treatment that was available. Like probably you have done given a drug, and you compare that with, had you done a surgery, what would have happened? So you have the intervention to compare with, and that is the C part. and O is the outcome, that what happens ultimately, the outcome of the patient, how it improves or whatever happens. Then you can study whatever questions you are forming in research. You are using this basic PICO method to do that. And PECO is also similar, that is only exposure and part of that comparison outcome. Like I'll give an example. If the population is a pregnant woman in urban areas, so example is you have defined that the pregnant woman in urban areas, then you take pregnant woman exposed to air pollution in Asia, you make it more specific, and exposure is PM particulate matter 2.5 air pollution exposure. So you keep it daily or annual PM 2.5 above WHO limits. Your comparator will be naturally no exposure to particulate matter of 2.5 and pregnant women in low pollution areas. So that is the comparator for your study. The outcome you see is the birth weight, the preterm birth, etc. And the exam, obviously, you have this observational study and cohort and case control studies, and you have an idea that using PECO, that you are going about this research in a proper way so that you can define that how these different exposures are resulting in different outcomes. So that is what you're studying. So finally, to the inclusion and exclusion criteria, I'll just give an example here. It's not that it's typically this. The thing is that the inclusion and exclusion criteria will depend on when you are studying various papers or taking various studies into a systematic review. What you do is you use the inclusion, exclusion criteria. There's an example given here from some one country, and the journals that were written by Indonesian or foreign writers. It is taken from that journal, so that Indonesian is mentioned. It might be an Indian author. There's no issue with that. The journal isn't written by Indian or foreign authors on a typical topic. We exclude those which are the national or international seminar proceedings. So some results might be there available on the internet or available on the various research data that may be findings of some national or international seminar proceedings. So we don't include that. We exclude that. We are taking only the journal articles which are written by the one country or the foreign authors, and you see the research location. If it is India, you see the research location in India. If it is in Indonesia, it is in USA. You accordingly select that, and you exclude those which are outside India or outside USA as per your criteria. So what you have set as your criteria for inclusion, if you have included only research location in India, you take research studies or papers or articles which are only written by authors from research locations in India. So you don't use articles used by Indian authors which are written on a US population. So you're including only those which you have taken for an Indian population studied in India. Okay, I'll just give an example like that. So you are taking into criteria further things like published in index journals, and you're excluding those which are not published in index journals, and you are taking those articles which are published during a typical year, a typical period of a year, suppose from 2019, 2025, 2014, 2019 as mentioned here, and those you are excluding those which are before that. If you are taking an inclusion criteria of including all items beyond 2020 to 2025, then anything published before 2020 you'll exclude for that study. So inclusion and exclusion criteria are set by yourself. You are yourself setting it up by doing a typical research on a typical population, which will give you the proper optimized data and the optimized analysis and results. Okay, so that is how you go about doing a proper analysis of systematic reviews and meta-analysis on various questions, and formulate a question based on PICO or PECO, which can give you a proper research question formulation. This much I think was your topic for today. So thank you very much, Simran. I think it is okay. And if you have any questions, you can send me on the inbox. I will answer that in time.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. If anyone has any questions, put that in the chat box. So we'll try to answer.
Yeah,
So
I'll do it later. You just send me the questions. I will answer it later. Okay? Is that okay with you?
Yeah, yes, sir. Very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the patience. It's a very basic thing for you. And if you need anything, I'll tell later on also. Okay?
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'll leave the meeting. Thanks.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all for joining today. If you have any questions, you can post in the YouTube, in the chat box or on the WhatsApp group, and we'll send the questions to the sir. Thank you all. We have another webinar, 3 webinars scheduled. Hope you all join that too, and we'll learn from that. Thank you so much.
Why can't I leave this?
Yeah, yes, sir, you can leave. Okay, sir. Okay, you guys can leave. Thank you so much.